For this, we're graphing a hyperbola. We know it's a hyperbola because we have this subtraction sign in between. So that's the difference between that and an ellipse. Now to graph this, what we're going to do is draw a rectangle. Now the rectangle is not actually part of the graph, but it's just a way to kind of give us a reference for this. So if you ever saw a graph on a calculator or something, it wouldn't necessarily have the little rectangular box. Alright, the first thing we're going to do is come up with our A values. So in a hyperbola, A always comes first. So a squared comes from this. So we have a squared is equal to 4. So we're going to take square root of both sides, and a is equal to 2. Okay, so we're going to graph that first. Now since it was under the x, we're going to put it on the x-axis. Okay, now we'll come up with our b value as well. So b squared is equal to 16. So we take the square root of both sides, and b is equal to 4. Okay, and so we'll graph 4 and -4. Now again, this is just for our reference. Okay, and so what we'll do is draw a rectangular box in here to come up with a reference point for our graph. And usually we draw it as a dashed box just to kind of show that it's not part of the graph. Alright, so now with this, we've drawn our reference. Now we're going to draw in our asymptotes. Now our asymptotes are lines, and what they'll do is they'll be diagonals of the rectangle. So what we're going to do here is draw those in. We'll try to, anyway, let's see how this looks. That's off a little bit, and then we draw in our asymptote here. Alright, these are our two asymptotes. Okay, the lines that it won't cross. I'm going to clear that one up a little bit. Shouldn't
the asymptote be 4 over 2?
Which would be 1/2. Well, it would end up being 16 over 4. Well, I mean, if we actually came up with the equation, it'd be y is equal to mx. So it's going to end up being 4 over 2. So actually it's going to be 2 for our slope. So it'd be 2 over 1. So that's why it's kind of steep here. Alright, but we don't you weren't actually asked for those equations, but you could come up with them.
Yeah. So those two, that's the x is the asymptote?
As far as
The x on the graph.
alright, it's not an x, it's two lines. Okay? We're drawing a line through here and a line through here. Now this one's kind of rough. But I'm not doing all that. So we end up with this. Now the question earlier was how do we know if it's up here or here? Now our A value is our vertices. So our vertices is right here. So we're going to draw a graph coming out of here. We'll draw our branches from here. Okay, and then here. Now sometimes you'll see the asymptotes drawn as dashed lines. But again, these are mainly reference for us. But again, when we draw the rectangle, then if we draw the diagonals of the box, it gives us the asymptotes without actually having to come up with the equations of them. But we can come up with the equations. But it's a kind of a quicker way to graph those without actually graphing each one of these lines. Alright, now let's look at this one. Here we have y squared comes first, so that's going to be our A value. Remember, A always comes first with a hyperbola. So for this one, we'll end up with A squared is equal to 16. So we're going to take the square root, and so A is 4. Now again, it's underneath the y, so we're going to be on the y-axis. So we're going to put those points in. Now these are actually 0, 4, and 0, -4, but we can just graph it from there. I think we can just go straight from there to there. Okay, now let's do b squared is equal to 9. Okay, so we'll take the square root of both sides, and b is equal to 3. So again, as an ordered pair, this would be 3, 0, and -3, 0. But we're just going to go ahead and fill them in as here and here. Because again, we hadn't had to list the center, but the center is at the origin for these two particular problems we just did. Alright, so now we're going to draw in our little box, and again, this is a guide. It's not really part of the graph of the hyperbola. Okay, and so we put that in, and that's mainly to guide us so that we can draw in our lines for our asymptotes. Um, that's off. I'm gonna redo that one. That one was way off. All right. All right. So those are our asymptotes. It really should come through up here. See, I'm gonna redo that one too. Yeah. So it should be a. Well, oh, that's way off. All right. Yeah, that's pretty close. All right. Now, we're just gonna. Now the question again is, which one's our vertices? Remember, our vertices is always with the A value. So our A was the 4. So this particular one, I'm gonna darken this in. Get this a little bit. This one. All right. So our hyperbola branches. Well, that's a little off. Our hyperbola branches will be up here and here. Okay, so the main thing I'm looking for though is that you draw them in the right places, and they don't have to be super pretty.